for bringing us all together and providing the opportunity for us to have this workshop. I'd like to invite our online participants to go ahead and not, you've already signed in when you put your email and that whole thing, but also, if you'll notice over on the left side of the screen, there's a place for you to stream chatting. So if everybody that has tuned in would please put in their name, and I think it asks for your name and your location, and that way we know who's out there, because we really do like to know who is out there. The other thing is that if you're chatting, I know when I streamed in for Allie's class, there was a whole lot of stuff going on in the chat that was really lots of fun. And so please feel free to do that. Also, ask questions on the chat. Please participate in the discussion on the chat. Our guardian angel, or our Stellarian angel, or actually it's Barb, I'll just tell you that right now. If you write something down, somebody in the back of the room that is around the camera is going to make sure that I get, like if you were to ask a question or you had a comment, we're going to, it'll come up. Somebody just wrote something funny because Barb is back there whispering to Gary. So, anyway, what can I say? Oh, now everybody's getting up to go back and look at the computer. Oh, now I'm going to lose the class. Already I've lost control. This is an interactive class. That's kind of the big message, is that this is an interactive class, and there's going to be an opportunity for you to interact if you're here, and also if you're out there in cyber world. And I think I said, ask questions, make comments. So this is Ethics for Stellarians. So I think, hopefully you all know that you're all Stellarians. My definition of a Stellarian is someone who is studying, involved in the Church of Light, astrology, anybody who's looking at the stars. So it's pretty all-inclusive. So how did this class come about? Well, I am a practicing therapist, a mental health professional. And in order for me to maintain my license in the state of New Mexico, every 2 years I have to take 40, I have to get 40 continuing education units. And so, in other words, it's what helps me keep up with that particular craft. New Mexico is a wonderful place in that a lot of people who are, more people than you would think, who are mental health therapists are also practicing metaphysicians. And, but one part of the continuing education, I call it hoop jumping, no offense, is that 6 of the continuing education hours that we take every 2 years has to be in the field of ethics. And most of the time I whine about that because a lot of people don't teach very good ethics classes. But the last one I went to was really a good one. It was a very, very good one. And one of the things that it caused me to do was to really begin to think about, and I had been thinking along these lines, but to think about ethics for us. You know, what kind of ethical things do we, are we practicing? I mean, as people who are learning about astrology and tarot and other kinds of divination, we're practicing out there, right? Yes. Let's have some nods of some methods. The camera's nodding up and down. Thank you, Cyberland, for nodding. Yes, we are practicing. So, so what are our responsibilities? What do we have? What are our considerations? Well, you know, we have to be ethical in what we do. I mean, we have to be ethical as we walk down the street. Our lives are hopefully, and also those of us who are in the Church of Light, well, our big picture is contribute our utmost to universal welfare. Well, in order to do that, we had better be ethical human beings. So in thinking about this, I started talking to some other people around here about it, and when we knew that this was coming up, I asked if I could do this presentation. I asked if I could do this workshop. And I was told yes, I could. So here we are. We here, we don't have a written code of standards. I think we need one. And because I just said that, I know who's going to end up doing it. You're right about that. The one metaphysical organization, or the one organization that the International Society of Astrological Research, they have a very cool set of standards and ethical standards, and they spend a lot of time dealing with ethics. And I'm sure there are other organizations that also have that. Well, we don't, and I think we need one. And that being said, I know who like I said, I know who gets to do it. But we can go to a website and look that up, because I think we need to. All of us need to be really aware of this. Okay. So in today's presentation, it may surprise you or may not surprise you to know that we are going to practice good ethics here. A little sidebar. I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's getting really warm in here. Thank you. So, because this is interactive, and because you may have some questions about some actual things that have happened in your life or your practice or your interaction with people, we're going to be very careful about how we deal with things. Anyone who comes to us, whether we are a professional receiving money or not, they have rights as they come to us. And one of their rights is to confidentiality. So today, if you have a specific thing that has happened that is actually regarding a real person, let's be very careful not to use anyone's name. And also to try to frame the question in such a way that we couldn't figure out who it was, even if we tried. All right? So to protect everybody's confidentiality. So we're going to deal kind of in generalities. So you can just act, just make believe that you're making a question up, even though if it does relate to a specific event, that we won't know that. Okay? Are we on the same page so far? Okay. Here we go. When I went to do this presentation, this was, I read this and I just love this. So I'm going to read to you. I'm not going to insult you, but I am going to read it to you. Ethics thrives exactly where people choose to live, in the tension between that which is and that which ought to be. A faith tradition not only illuminates a moral horizon toward which we strive, but also gives reason for the hope that the horizon is aiding our advance, that the other is beckoning. Well, I think this struck me because, yes, we are a school of astrology and tarot. We are a school of metaphysics, of esoterica, but we are also a faith. We are a philosophy. We are in that respect. And I mean, how each one of us chooses to frame what we're doing on the ninth house side, religion, law, and philosophy side, I perceive, and this is my perception, I perceive that we are dealing with this ethical issue not only as practitioners and just plain astrologers and practitioners of tarot and other divination, but we're also looking we come from a faith place. So I want to put that out there because I think that is a consideration that we also have as we move forward. In your handout, every single slide that is here is represented here with some lines for copying down pearls of wisdom that I may lay forth, or something of that nature. Yes, sir.
Meg, the handouts did not get uploaded in time online, but they will be uploaded so that people will be able to go back and get them.
Okay.
Just to let them know.
Okay. And also, just so you do know, in case you're at home going, oh darn, I'm so disappointed, because the handouts are very generic, and you know, I just do handouts because I think people very often, my experience is when you go to a workshop, people like to have something in their hand, something to play with, I think. All right. So, does anybody have any comment on this quotation? Anybody have anything profound they'd like to say about it, or not profound?
Well, yeah, I mean, how do you think the fact that there may be an element of faith associated with this would be different from any other practitioner? Does that make any sense?
I'm not sure. I think it does, but I'm not sure.
Well, why, if we have a tradition that's also associated with a path or a faith or a definition of some higher whatever it is, how does that make it any different from someone else that's a practitioner?
The question relates to how does it make it different if we're faith-based than any other practitioner? How does approaching the ethical issues? And that's an excellent question, and it has to do with just that fact that people who come from a faith-based tradition tend to apply the morality code of their faith-based position to any ethical question, which is sometimes good and sometimes not so good, okay, which we will address more of. But it's kind of a red flag issue when it's faith-based, because there are some biases attached to it.
There's some,
Yeah,
I've been in
you see
classes
that?
with people who are.
Yes.
Well, also, modern ethics is really a modern concept. Well beyond, most religions are much older than modern ethics.
Exactly. And that, by the way, when I was doing my research for this presentation, I hit the mother lode, and that was at through Santa Clara University. Santa Clara University has an undergraduate degree in ethics, and they have a website, and you can just Google Santa Clara University ethics, and it'll pop up for you. They have this amazing, amazing program, and just pages and pages and pages and pages of articles that are written by professionals and students and people out in the community. And I mean, I didn't get any work done for like 2 days because all I was doing was sitting there reading these wonderful articles. And I actually called them and talked with them. And they said they couldn't help me. But, you know, because some of the questions that I was asking were just so general, and, you know, and their information officer was just amazing. And this is where I went with it, and those of you who know me will understand, because this is what I do. But by the time I was finished, I was ready to pack up the car and move to Santa Clara and go to the university. But then when I talked with Miriam, who's this wonderful woman with whom I spoke, she said, well, you don't want to do that because you want to get an advanced degree. So she told me where else to go. But anyway, not like that.
If our faith-based tradition, which it is different, because we're the only one I know that says we're not finished. Our faith-based tradition makes us humble because we know we must add to it. make it better, study more, learn more, as a research scientific part of our faith.
And that's a bias.
Yes.
And that's a bias. That's exactly what I was talking about. So it depends on what kind, and so that's what we have to look at and always be aware of, as when we're addressing this as a faith-based concern, then, or ethics as a faith-based issue, we have to be very, very careful that we are not putting on our belief system onto the question of ethics. Have to be very careful. Yes.
That's implied in the quote here, the horizon is aiding our advance.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's probably a pretty ubiquitous, the idea that spiritual growth is going on no matter what faith is, the arena.
Mm-hmm. And ethics is going on no matter what the arena. And we just have to be very cautious in all that we do. And especially because we are divinating. We're messing with people's lives here. I mean, that's my satirizing, but that's what we're doing. When we tell them something, we're saying something that may influence outcomes. So we have to be very cautious, and especially in this day and age, where we are living in a very litigious society. We just need to be quite careful, and I'm going to help us with that today. All right. So in our process today, this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what we mean by ethics. We're going to look at why we need to consider ethics in what we do. We are going to consider how we make ethical decisions, actually how we make ethical decisions. Then we're going to really look at what our ethical responsibilities are as students of the occult and as practitioners of divination. And then ultimately, I'm just going to refer, and that the last part is we're going to talk a little bit about ethical standards, which do currently exist, which I kind of already have talked about, but I'll talk a little bit more about it. And then, if we have time, I have a couple of situations. I have some situations that we're going to discuss and see if we can figure out what we ought to do ethically, what our ethical path would be in these given situations. So, sound like this is where you want to be? Okay, then we will proceed. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is, what do we mean by ethics? Okay, so, gosh, within the context of what we mean by ethics, we have a lot kind of to look at. We have basic definitions. We have, when we talk about ethics, we talk about, is it personal ethics? Is it professional ethics? What kind of ethics are we talking about? What is situational ethics? What is morality versus ethics? What impact do social norms and traditions have in considering ethics? And then there's this whole other thing, ethics and metaphysics, which is kind of, it's very interesting because it would seemingly be kind of new, but in reality, it's very old. So those are the things that we're going to discuss today, and the very first thing we're going to do is I want you to write down what you believe ethics means. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that, and those of you at home, get your piece of paper out and write down what ethics means. Just a sentence is good.
Does everybody have something to write with?
Everybody has something to write with? Do you need, everybody's good? All right. Barb, I'm going to be going over there to write. Am I going to be okay doing that? Okay. Don't follow me. Can you see, if you can see this?
You'll need a light probably.
Would you turn that light up on there?
Oh, the board, certainly.
Do you have a, Paul, is there a broader marker, black marker somewhere in the world?
Just turn it off.
Well, that's a permanent marker.
Yeah, I think I need a broad one, if there is one.
There are here underneath. Well, you'll have to find them underneath the tablecloth. You know, you send them there.
Yeah, those are,
Dry erase. Here's dry erase.
I don't want dry
Oh.
erase.
Okay.
They stink. Is this dry erase? This is good. Perfect. Huh? Yeah, I think they'll be able to read it better if it's broader. All right, we ready? So here's what I want you to do, and this means honing your listening skills as well. So I'm going to ask you to listen to to really listen to everybody else, and whatever you've written down, if you think somebody else has said something that pretty much nails what you've got on the head, then on the head, then you aren't going to need to tell us yours. Is that understandable? Okay. So who would like to give us their definition? Okay, Wellington.
I have to preface this by saying it's strictly applicable to Stellarians.
Just put it out.
And that would be the strict, conscious, and deliberate avoidance of all activities which may harm the soul of another.
Okay, say again, strict.
Conscious and deliberate avoidance of all activities which may harm the soul of another.
Okay, and that was a good point. Today, you don't have to preface anything with everything. This is stream of consciousness work. Okay, so anybody else have anything that they would like to put on the paper?
I kind of added the other side to that. What I wrote was taking responsibility for one's words and deeds. The above was speaking to activities, but I'd also include words. So that one's effects on others are not harmful, but rather helpful, truthful, have integrity, and further their conscious evolution.
Taking responsibility for one's words and deeds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I want you to look up here, Laura,
Yeah.
at what he had, and can you synthesize yours so that it doesn't copy this?
Right. The next phrase did copy it. It said, so that
right,
one's
so
effects on others are not harmful. But then I added the following phrase, but rather helpful, truthful, have integrity, and further their conscious evolution.
and with integrity that furthers evolution, that,
Okay. I just said have integrity and further their conscious evolution.
anybody else?
Well, some of us have really simple ones.
And that's good.
Yeah.
Standard for code.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Standard code.
Okay. For all of you that are out there in Cyberland, there's a person here who has a very, something strange going on with their voice. And so if you hear this, it goes like that. We have it that every time this person speaks, I get a sign that says repeat the question. So I will be repeating the question. Okay, excuse me.
Just a set or code of
Standard code of conduct. Standard code of conduct. Okay. Standard code of conduct. Whoops. Paul, you had your hand up?
Ensuring fairness and openness in business and personal relations.
Relations or relationships?
Either one.
Okay. Christopher?
I put down thinking, speaking, and doing unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Oh, that's nice.
Thinking,
Speaking and doing.
as we would have them, as you would have them do unto you.
That concept was borrowed.
What?
I said that concept was borrowed.
It's the Aquarian Age version of the.
Anybody else have one they want us to put down?
Yeah. From the police point of view, doing what is legally and morally right.
Now that opens up a can of worms.
Excuse me, we're not going to be filtering here. Okay, say it again, please.
Doing what is legally and morally right.
Or doing the right thing.
I can only do one at a time here. Doing what is legally and morally
and
right.
morally. You have to have both.
Okay, Peg, did you want to add one? Or add something?
No, just doing the right thing. Don't ask me to elaborate what the right thing is.
Okay, so I'm just going to put, so you do have
Niels
one.
is better.
No, Niels is not better.
Do the right thing. Who's living in
And this is different, doing the right thing, that's different than this.
I had something that added to the right thing. I had doing the right thing based on our faith and what we feel in our soul is the right thing to do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Based on,
Our faith and what we feel in our soul is the right thing to do.
anything else, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
acting for the highest good of all concerned.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. Wow. These are just, aren't they? Isn't this wonderful? This is wonderful. Strict, conscious, and deliberate avoidance of all activities which may harm the soul of another. Taking responsibility for one's words and deeds, being helpful, truthful, and with integrity to further conscious evolution, along with what Wellington said. A standard code of conduct. So this is what ethics means. Ethics means to ensure fairness and openness in business and personal relations. Ethics means thinking, speaking, and doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. Ethics means doing what is legally and morally right. Ethics means doing the right thing. Ethics means doing the right thing based on our faith and what we feel in our soul is the right thing to do. And ethics means acting for the highest good of all concerned. Don't throw that away. And what will happen is, when we get to the end of this, you may want to go back and add or delete or do something to your own meaning. These are very insightful. Now, at some point, yes.
Do you know, what is the root word for ethics?
What is the root
Word?
ethos? Ethos?
Yeah.
Ethos.
And
Standard of conduct.
Yeah.
okay.
And what's the root of the word ethos?
Grab the dictionary well.
Well,
Happy
we'll
to.
get the dictionary. Well is our dictionary guy. Okay. And just Wellington,
That would be the Latin dictionary.
I'm gonna
That's
move
great.
on. I'm gonna move on. So at a kind of a breaking point, not in the middle of things. Okay, so this is, as you could see, there. I mean, you want to ask people about, you know, what does ethics mean? Is like saying, what is the best flavor of ice cream? Everybody's got an opinion, and some. So these are not the correct definitions, but these are commonly accepted definitions that came out of a conference on ethics. Now, I want to say, before I say anything else, that the two things that are most commonly agreed on, which are not really here, but sort of, everything comes from these two things, is the Golden Rule and a code. I almost made a bad sign. You can tell I'm a retired middle school teacher because when I start to do things like that, I immediately get all panicky. And also an agreed upon code of conduct. Like, and I'm, you know, depending, but like, for example, the Ten Commandments, or you know, but those two things are imperative in looking at any ethical considerations. Okay, So principles of right or good conduct, or a body of such principles. A system of moral principles or values, the study of the general nature of morals and of specific moral choices, and the rules or standards governing the conduct of the members of a group or profession. Okay, so these are, and these are not faith-based at all. This is not faith-based. This is just in general terms. You got it? What?
Ethos is in the dictionary, and as far as Greek, French, and Nederlands meanings, it is the custom or character. And anglicized, it means distinguishing character, tone, or guiding beliefs.
Okay. Good, thank you.
For ethos.
For ethos.
What does it say? Is that the root of ethics?
No, that's actually a word. Yes, ethos is the word is the root of ethics.
I would think that the same root informed both words. Whatever it be.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Okay,
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Whoops.
And I did.
Oh, I did. I missed. Okay, so when we talk about ethics, the first consideration that we have is what kind of ethics are we talking about? Because that changes. That changes. Are we talking about personal ethics? Are we talking about professional ethics? Because, or are they the same, or are they different, or what is? We have to look at both. All right, so.
Well, doesn't that create a lot of conflict?
Just a minute. Okay, I'm sorry. What were you going to ask? What were you asking?
Doesn't that create a lot of conflict?
It doesn't create a
Does
lot.
that mean?
It has to be considered. I mean, when you look at ethics, you have to, we have to realize that there's a difference between. There may be a big difference between personal. Well, there is. There's a huge difference between personal ethics and professional ethics.
But isn't that why business sometimes can become so brutal?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I have in this room. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 people. Yay! So what I would like for you to do is to, and Gary, all right, and Barb's busy. So if you would get into groups of 3, please, and answer these questions. How are personal and professional ethics the same, and how are they different? And come up with, there are 3 of you in the group, so come up with 3 reasons for each one. How are the 3 reasons why you believe that they're the same, 3 reasons why you believe that they're different. Okay, can I get you in 3s, or do I need to count you off?
Count them off.
Count them off?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, hold your finger up so you'll remember your number. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1s are right here, 2s are right here, 3s are right here, and 4s are over there. Okay, move quickly. You will have 3 to 4 minutes to do this. And for those of you at home, I'd like for you to take this opportunity to do the same thing. In the next 3 to 4 minutes, if you would please write down where to.
There are no 4s, it was 1, 2, 3.
No, it was 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 groups of 3. 4s are over here in this corner.
That's one thing to have.
We can sit right Okay.
How are they the same?
And, what?
They both stand for moral code.
Barbara's telling me I have to talk to the camera, but I want to go find my water bottle. So Barbara, will you go find my water bottle and I'll talk to the camera? It's a...
Just put the slide on. Can we just put it on the slide?
It is on the slide.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, 3.
Okay, how are they the same?
I don't know. I lost it.
Professional, for me, they're extremely the same. I've been self-employed for decades.
They should.
I think
There's no difference whatsoever.
I
I try and be generous in business and generous in
So as I said at home, those of you that are home, please respond to the same question. Take some time.
I would absolutely
Contributes or opposed.
So, and they all include honesty, they all include fairness.
I mean, if you add honesty, they have honesty,
They include honesty and fairness.
It's different from what you're saying, but I have to be doing what I think is moral. Now, is that all
Honesty, fairness, and confidentiality.
Right, and I think that's the same that is what you're talking about. That's what you said, that there's an element of morality. I don't know what it is.
I just think professional business should reflect personal life.
Yes.
What's the third way, professional?
Yeah. Every time I contract, if I contract for this much, I go out my way to deliver that much. And that's just no different in private life.
Right. So if you're ethical in one, you've got to be ethical in the
It
other.
would spill over and influence the other.
Well, maybe what she's asking for is just personal.
No, she's asking for definition.
A suggestion. Don't try to second guess it, just answer the question. Personal versus professional, how are they the same, how are they different?
Okay. Let's think about how our personal
Well,
would be different.
I have worked.
That might be a topic for me.
No, that's not tough for me at all. I see that. Personal life is not business. You'll hear people say it all the time.
And it was.
It's not personal, it's business.
Yeah, I'm not collecting money for it if it's personal.
Yes, people are, may run a very ethical business, because that's what they deal with people to keep their business.
Or they're compelled to by
They're
law.
compelled to by law, yes, but their personal life
They're
may be quite different. It's no longer business to them, it's no longer their way of getting money.
Right.
Now they
Because
can
you always
switch
know that there's.
Okay, so if it's, it could be different if the business person is,
Okay, you got about one more minute.
okay, so if the business person is compelled by nothing but legality
Yeah.
to be ethical, and conducts the private life in a moral manner,
Yeah,
then that would
exactly.
be
Because I've been, and I've been in that
Sure.
situation.
Okay, so legalities would be different. One who is compelled to be ethical by
Well, the needs of
versus
the,
someone who's compelled to be ethical.
maybe you can say more people.
And another example is the minister who is
Presumably you're involved.
doing everything legally, morally right for his people, but morally he's having an affair with someone
More
else.
considerations in terms of
Worse. Yeah. Or as a seduce, but there's worse.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, 30 seconds.
I mean, they're.
I'm really happy with what you did.
30 seconds.
So when we they're the same in that. Your place has to be consistent. Have to be doing what I think is morally right in both circumstances. And in regard to integrity and personal
There is. There is.
That would be an example.
Yeah.
orders.
I wouldn't say that being illegal isn't
We may
valid.
be limited in our understanding of the situation.
Because a minister does not have any legal ramifications of ministering to his people. But he's a moral one. But he may have a different moral standard for himself.
And it begs the question right off the bat, does the profession have to be
Time.
Here in the first place, yes. Maybe not.
You're going to speak on our behalf.
Yes, you are. Well, it is very obvious that that was an interesting discussion from group to group. And there was a lot of, I can't wait to see what some of these answers are going to be. All right, so each group should have a spokesperson. Forgot to tell you that, but I'm sure you can figure that out pretty quickly. All right, so we're going to start with, again, if you are the spokesperson for your group, and you're the one that has the piece of paper there, again, what you want to do is you want to look at, and you have to use big picture, okay, the broad intent of what a group says. So for example, if someone makes a statement on how they are the same, and you look at your paper and you say, okay, big picture, this is the same as this thing that we wrote, then scratch it off and don't give it to me, okay? Is that, everybody understand?
When you
Yes.
stand in front of the screen, you actually have print going across your face, which may not be good for camera, so it's best to either stand there or to the side here.
Actually, I did that on purpose because I thought it looked... Here, let me move to the color port. Okay. Thank you, Christopher. I appreciate that. All right. So let's start with group number 4. Are you the speaker?
I am the speaker.
Okay, and be aware that they want to hear you over there too, so use your outside voice.
Number 1, and how they are the same, is fairness is involved.
Okay?
Number 2, openness.
Does openness have one N or two?
Two.
Thank you.
And the third is respect for the person and for the privacy.
Okay?
And then one different. Is that
Okay,
what-
we're not doing different, we're doing the same.
Thank you, that's
Okay? So that's it. All right, now look at your list. Look at your list and determine whether there's anything on there. And remember, just remember, if yours has anything to do with fairness, openness, or respect for privacy, then you're not going to give it to me. Group number 2, may I have yours, please?
Yes. They are the same in that at your core you have to be consistent.
May I write consistency?
Consistency. That goes along with another point we made about integrity. A person who acts differently in a professional and personal situation can be hypocritical. So integrity, avoiding hypocrisy. And the third point we made was, have to be doing what I think is morally right in both circumstances, which is sort of a reiteration of consistency.
Yeah, it is. Also, just so you know, this is a learning curve here, consistency and fairness are pretty close to the same, in my experience, but I may be wrong, okay? But, okay. All right, group 1.
Oh, that's me. And
Oh,
I thought we elected new.
well, I
it doesn't,
I elected Neil
excuse
and-
me, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
We have nothing further to add.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes we do. There's one, confidentiality was one thing that came
Well,
up.
that was respect
This
for
is
Oh,
respect,
okay.
this is exactly what respect for
I
privacy
didn't read
is.
that, sorry.
Okay, that's why I've asked to listen carefully, because that's, just part of it. Okay, let's go. Group number 3.
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Okay, so we, as a group, is there anything, did anybody stream in with anything that we don't have written down here? Get on your computers if you have, nobody's coming in. Did y'all go to lunch or something? You don't have anything to say. All right. Okay, so we agree that for the most part, personal and professional ethics are the same in that you must have fairness, openness, a respect for privacy, consistency, and integrity, right? Okay. Now, I'm sorry. Do you have a question, Vicki, or something? All right. Now, how are they different? Did I ask you to do how they are different at the
Yes.
same time? Oh, I'm so glad I did that. I thought I didn't. Okay. So, how are they different? Let's begin now with this. Let's do group number 1 first. Was group number 1 first? Last? First?
No, we really couldn't come up with any differences except perhaps for the possibility of legality.
Yes, somebody might be compelled to be ethical only through legalities.
Okay. All right. How about group number 3?
The same.
How about group number 2?
We said that professionally we can have been asked to do things we're not comfortable with or which we feel compromise our ethics in order to follow orders or please the boss. So doing our duty, you could put it that way. We may be limited in our understanding of the whole situation in professional situations. So limited understanding. And we're considering more people than in personal situations.
And these are all in the realm of your professional ethics, right?
Right.
Okay. And I think group number 4, is that right?
Right.
Anything to add?
Perhaps written rules. There might be written rules.
Oh, they're different in that there may be written rules. Okay, in professional.
That's good.
That's kind of like the legality
Yes.
of the
Yeah,
situation.
compliance or legality.
It is. It's.
Okay.
That's all.
That's all? Good job, everybody. Give yourself 3 claps. That's
And 4 cars.
okay, so personal and professional ethics are the same because of fairness, openness, consistency, integrity versus hypocrisy, and respect for privacy. And they're different in that in professional ethics, and that's kind of where everybody zoned right in on that, we have legality involved. We sometimes have to compromise in order to do our duty, to do our job. That we may, in a professional situation, we may have a limited understanding of. My favorite words today are what, Radine? The big picture. The big picture. And in professional ethics, we are consistently considering more people. Oh, you all are going to love these a little bit later. And that in professional situations, we very often do have a written standard that we deal with. Okay? Good job, everybody. All right. So our next thing that we're going to look at is were situational ethics, morality versus ethics, and social norms and traditions. Okay, so I'm not, there's a boo-boo on there.
It's in the lens.
It's in the
Projector.
in the projector, yeah.
Okay, now Okay, I need to focus on something here just a minute. I have to count because I'm off on what slide I'm dealing with in relationship to where I am, and these puppies don't have the numbers on them for some reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. Okay, good. All right. So, here we go. What is situational ethics, for crying out loud?
It's also called ethical pragmatism, isn't it?
No $25 words in this place, please.
It's what?
Actually, and I have to tell you, it is called many different things, but the common agreed upon term in the field is situational ethics. Okay, so yes, it may be called different things, but so any ideas about what this is? Do I need to read something to you about situational ethics? Would you like me to read a little thing to you about situational
Please.
ethics?
Yes.
Okay, I would be glad to do that because I just happen to have something.
I've heard it could be called there could be great disagreement on whether there even should be such a thing as situational ethics. I've heard that at some time.
That's interesting. Da, 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 da. Okay, I can't find it. I know, that's okay, because I wrote some stuff down. Okay, so situational ethics has to do with when we talk about something like Nazi Germany, all right? That's an example of situational ethics. People in Germany did things that today we look back and say, well, you know, those were terrible things to do. But at that time, there were people that thought that those were the right things to do because of the situation and how it presented itself. And and this is not a discussion about whether what happened in the Holocaust was ethical or not ethical, but that's what we talk about when we're talking about situational ethics, about the fact that a particular situation, for example, another example would be, in response to the bombing of the World Trade Center, that our nation moved forward into occupying another nation, and so again, situational ethics, where and you get into all other kinds of things when you look at that, as far as well, what part does the media play, and things like that. I do want to say at this time, I was going to save this for the end, but I'm going to say it right now, because we have to take a time out. That's what I need to tell you. We're going to take a time out for about 5 minutes because we are. We took care of our technical problem and we're back right in here together, and some people are still kind of dancing across the floor, so if they do that, but what I want to do is I want to go ahead and read something to you, which is kind of a looking at these three may clarify some of them or give you, because it, as Vicki said, this is where everything gets very muddy in these areas, in the situational ethics, the morality versus ethics, and social norms and traditions. So, many people tend to equate their ethics with their feelings. Okay? You can't do that. We cannot do that. Ethics is not about how I feel. And the minute that we begin to do it that way, we are going to end up muddying the waters. A person following his or her feelings may recoil from doing what is right. Very often, feelings deviate from what is truly ethical. How we feel is not about what's ethical. Well, never mind. That would be violating someone's confidentiality. Okay. No one should identify ethics with religion. So we cannot identify ethics with faith because of what we talked about earlier. Because again, then we end up with this morality issue. Our morality saying that that if you do this particular thing, that at any rate, you know that. I'm having problems here. Okay. Most religions advocate high ethical standards. We know that. Yet if ethics were confined to religion, then ethics would apply only to religious people. And that's like when I was in the second grade, I came home and told my father he was going to hell because he wasn't a Catholic. Because that's what the nuns told me. And my mother marched right down there and told them they couldn't say that. I mean, that was really unethical. I mean, he was an Episcopalian. You can't get much closer to a Catholic than an Episcopalian. Religion can set high ethical standards and can provide intense motivations for ethical behavior. Ethics, however, cannot be confined to religion, nor is it the same as religion. Being ethical is also not the same as following the law. The law often incorporates ethical standards to which most citizens subscribe. But laws, like feelings, can deviate from what is ethical. Our own pre-Civil War slavery laws and apartheid laws of South Africa were grossly obvious examples of laws that deviate from what is ethical. I'm also reminded at that point about in Cimarron, New Mexico, if you go to any stop sign in town, and you know when you stop at a stop sign, you're supposed to use your turn signal to let people know. Well, that's not. It's against the law. I think you're supposed to use your turn signal. You can be pulled over for not using your turn signal, can't you? Well, in Cimarron, New Mexico, it is completely ethical not to use your turn signal at a stop sign because everybody in town knows where you're going anyway. So you can see that that's a deviation. So finally, being ethical is not the same as doing whatever society accepts. In any society, most people accept standards that are, in fact, ethical. But standards of behavior in society can deviate from what is ethical. An entire society can become ethically corrupt. And we see that we're still seeing it. We saw it in Nazi Germany, we're seeing it, we saw it in Rwanda, we're seeing it all over the place. Moreover, if being ethical were doing whatever society accepts, then to find out what is ethical, one would have to find out, first of all, well, what does society accept? To decide what I think about abortion, for example, I would have to take a poll of society and then conform my beliefs to whatever It's not, those things are not, they don't fall in line with ethics at all. So, we're back to definitions again. So then what is ethics? Well, ethics is two things. First, well-based standards of right and wrong that prescribe what humans ought to do, usually in terms of rights, obligations, benefits to society, fairness, and specific values. Well, we figured that one out, didn't we? Secondly, ethics refers to the study and development of one's ethical standards. Okay? So, pretty interesting so far, huh? What do you think? And then there's the metaphysical part. So, ethics is the philosophical attempt, this is the only quote I found on ethics and metaphysics, which was very interesting. This is by Peter Miller. Ethics is the philosophical attempt to articulate and justify the most general nominative principles for guiding and evaluating human conduct, whereas metaphysics is a systematic philosophical inquiry into a question of what there is and how the different categories of things that are related to one another. So you can see that then that opens a whole new can of worms, or
Does everybody understand?
does everybody? Oh,
Metaphysics is a system.
It's a really long sentence.
it is a long sentence. I see.
I gave Susie
wrote it.
Yeah.
Paragraph's one sentence.
I know.
So ethics. So ethics is a philosophical. Everybody knows about philosophical. All right, the love of learning is a philosophical attempt to articulate and justify the most general nominative principles. In other words, the naming what the principles are. Nominative means naming. So naming principles for guiding and evaluating human contact. So that's what ethics is. All right. Now, metaphysics, on the other hand, is a systematic philosophical inquiry into a question of what there is, what's out there, on all levels, what's out there, and then how the different categories of the things that are out there are actually related to one another. Does that clarify it?
No, what's confusing is why are they in the same sentence?
Because they're different.
Say what the difference is between
Well, because what? No, it is because the whole this whole attitude or this whole area of metaphysics, you know, noetics, which is taking a look at everything, including what we're doing, and, you know, other things, the power of thought transference, I mean, everything, that is becoming a science. It's opening up big time. And that's metaphysics. And so what we are is we're on the brink of having to look at, well, how do we apply ethics when we are looking at what is out there and we don't know what is out there, and how are we going to deal with that when we don't really know what it is? And so that's, I'm putting it and bringing it in here just to say, oh hey, what we've been doing for all this time is beginning to come into general belief system, or the general beliefs, and ethics will have to be applied to it. And it's happening. And it's happening.
Didn't Star Trek answer that correctly?
Yay, Anne! Good. 3 claps for Anne. Absolutely. That was very good. I like that. Okay.
Except they didn't always follow it.
Well. Okay, so, what I want you to do is this. I want you, well, first of all, before we go on, we're going to look at why we consider ethics. And I want to give you this quotation. The minute we put the word should in a sentence, we are probably talking about ethics. I really like that because I have lots of issues with the word should. And I really loved this because maybe it'll help me reframe it because I get pretty upset when people tell me what I should do. But maybe if I can just think about, well, they're just inviting me to look at something ethically, that I can be better with that. So please do this. Do you want to get back in your same groups, or do I need to?
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
Get back in your same groups and list 4 reasons why you believe ethics is an important consideration for us as Stellarians or practitioners of, you know what you are. And you're going to have 5 minutes. No, 4 minutes. I like the number 4.
Okay, so I'd like to come up with 4 reasons why we believe ethics is an important consideration for us. Ethics
So that we can follow the directive of doing
Or reading,
Let me
Is that it allows for
do not filter.
internal
Hold on.
consistency.
One of the reasons that we're all attracted to a philosophical.
But that's a reason.
It's a very good reason.
Oh, okay.
Can you be more specific?
Can I be more specific? Yeah, well,
And
long potential for self-fulfillment.
Influencing.
in the position of authority, then we have an obligation. That's my same point, but still, we have authority, that's the problem. We're putting ourselves up as authorities.
As for having ethics, so you need to have a code of ethics because you are.
Because of the power differential.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was trying to get it on board.
so what's that word like?
Okay,
Influencing
yeah.
or
And that's,
promoting or
there's a power differential. That's a very
we
interesting
risk
point.
people
It's very tempting to know.
fulfilling all practices that we do.
Rather than their own.
Depending on who you are.
That's a real ethical
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the imposition of
It's
the reader's will upon the
Yes,
parent
yes, just make readers will
Feel it's essential.
upon others' lives.
to avoid the imposition of
Because I think it may well be true, this quote that I once heard, that the human mind is angry and suggestive.
It does really, it's a good point.
rather than clearance.
So you have to program correctly.
Which is, it goes to that power issue again.
It does.
That way, it goes beyond the from the first thing. The consequences.
Yeah,
within
yeah.
yourself. Within yourself.
Well, everybody who's ever done
But
this
it certainly makes you mind the way
it's
you
felt
know
that
that
temptation to know others.
especially
Well, it's
they
kind
are
of downstream,
bringing
but
on
that's downstream. You start with the
You can't put yourself on others. That's different than this.
There's big consequences.
And
to
it's
people.
even different than this self-fulfillment. It's even different than that.
2 more. We're on a roll here.
What happens if someone asks you what they should say?
your advisors. That's the power
I
differential.
don't give out authority.
Ethics.
I would simply ask what their goals
I
are.
would give them what the probabilities of what do something when I do something.
Keep it square.
You know, those of you that are out there in Cyberland, because you've got that chat function on the side, you can function as your own group. And I recommend that you go ahead and maybe try to do that, come up with some of these. They say you can't hear
Well,
me.
I'm writing what the way you first said it.
Well, I'm trying to
Where
square
would
it.
Yeah, just to keep the square writing. I think it's
That's true.
So like-
1 minute.
This is something that you-
Yeah.
It's very important, right?
1 minute.
Okay, and we don't deny that, so that's like, you don't talk about it, do it one way in one situation, another in another.
Or if you do, you don't get names. Just
Yeah.
put the general warning.
And then
Do you want to mention abilities?
Yes, you know, that is a good
Then
one.
there's legality once again.
Yeah, legality, liability,
First do no harm,
Well, it goes
even.
personal and
you have a
some.
group
and, you know.
No, I think that's different.
You get
Yeah.
swayed, it'll be a fifth point, being swayed by good things. Well, I think.
Okay, time please.
So we're not.
Yes, we're swayed by good things.
Sometimes they get lost.
Yes, good things, good things, yes. I know what it is. I'm glad you're
Don't just stay in your groups because I'm going to move you right out again. So if you just stay with your
Too late.
kids. All right, it's fine. It's fine. So what I had said, and then I was being really evil to you out there in Cyberland, and I was standing here and just moving my mouth and pretending like I was talking, and so you might have been frustrated and thinking, oh my gosh, we've lost something. But anyway, I was just
pulled away.
I was just being evil. It was my evil twin.
Is that ethical?
No, it was not ethical. I'm demonstrating
You were
what is
giving an
not
example
ethical. I
of
was giving an
unethical
example. However, I believe that those of you out in Cyberland can probably function as a group because you can chat in with one another, and then somebody in the back can give us your input as well. All right, so the question is why ethics is important to us as Stellarians, and so I'm going to start with group number 3.
Okay, we did not come up with 4 answers.
Well, good. Whatever you came up with is perfect.
Ethics promotes internal consistency and integrity in all our relationships. Ethics speak to...
Wait.
Oh, sorry. Internal consistency and integrity in all our relationships.
Okay.
Ethics speak to Stellarian core values of contribute your utmost to universal welfare. And, I can't see, ethics speak to our control of, yes. And then the last one we had was ethics guide us into a non-exploitative approach to professional relationships.
Guide us into
That was our brilliant Norma.
a non-exploitative
Exploitative approach in professional relationships.
approach. In what? In
Professional relationships.
And that's exactly what this group is talking about, you know, when you came up with that other thing. So, here we go. Look at this and decide which of yours coincides mostly with this. And we'll go with group number 6. I wondered if everybody was awake. Okay, we'll go with group number 1.
Ethics speaks to our core values
Contribute your utmost to universal welfare.
of, okay, a non-exploitative approach. Well, I guess that our non-exploitative approach covers these, a responsibility for influencing other lives.
Exactly.
Imposition of our own wills upon others rather than...
Exactly.
Confidentiality is one that we think is important. Stellarians in their service as in divination shouldn't be sharing their stuff with everybody else. And also, it
Could you
protects
speak
us.
up, Alan?
Oh, I'm sorry. Confidentiality is important because if we're gathering information from our clients and we're divining, we learn things that should not be shared with others, and and more than 2 people in the room, etc. And then also the last one would be to avoid liability, both personally and legally, or professionally and legally. We don't want to get into any liability issues.
There's probably some spiritual liabilities there.
Well, probably. How about avoid liability on all levels?
There
All
you go.
planes, yes.
On all planes.
Okay. All right. That was 1 and 3. So how about 2? Group 2?
2.
Look at what we've got up here and make
Yes,
sure you don't have.
Even though themes may be the same, the different expression of it may be informative.
Yeah, but what we're going to do is we're going to stick with themes for this. Okay?
Then I would say that one of the ones that we spoke to, which isn't quite stated up there, is that the acknowledgement that we're putting ourselves in a position of authority as advisors, so there's a power differential.
That's non-exploitative. And
Okay.
that's what non-exploitative is.
And to be mindful of the possible truth that the human mind is 100% suggestible.
Oh, that's a good one.
And also to keep us square with ourselves when sometimes we get lost or swayed by groupthink.
That would be internal
It's internal
consistency.
consistency. Okay, can I have the second one that you said, and everybody look and see if it's up there somewhere else? The second one that you
That
said?
the human mind is 100% suggestible.
It's probably in the non-exploitative.
No,
Yeah.
it's an internal thing, so you don't get lost.
It's both an internal and external responsibility.
Human mind is 100% suggestible.
Yeah. Even if we want to just say it may be 100% suggestible, we have to take responsibility.
Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, and group 4?
I can't remember them and I can't see them, but so they'll just say, we think it's important for all, and we're just one of all, to always use the best ethics we can. And we said that we also are representative of something greater than ourselves. And so we need to be especially as careful as possible.
So do we say that that speaks to our core values of
Right.
contribute your utmost to
Yeah,
universal
I think
welfare?
what we have
is pretty much what.
The same.
Okay,
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah, I think that this is a great document. It's a great document. I like the addition of power differential because I think that is very critical. There is definitely a power differential that occurs. And one of the things that I want to say to us is that we cannot think for a moment, just because I'm not charging you for this reading, that I'm not responsible for this, because I am. You know, as the person who is giving the reading, I am. There's a power differential. Okay. Awesome. 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 All right. Don't go away. There's more. Don't move back. You're going to do something else. Okay. So now, again, or maybe we don't need to do this. Let's look at this. Why do we need to consider ethics personally and as practitioners? Have we already answered this question? Okay. I mean, I do want to say this to you, that when I was doing this, I doubted that it would happen in the first slide, but you are awesome. You are awesome at this. Did anything come over the stream? Did anybody have any words of wisdom?
Not this time.
Not this time. Well, was there another time and you didn't give them to us?
They just said that you'd covered it and.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so this is about how we make ethical decisions. Guess what? It's been figured out how we do it. We use one of 4 basic approaches. The utilitarian approach, we use the social justice approach, we use the rights approach, and we use the virtue approach. That's how we do it. That's what the
Ethical board says?
No. I was going to say the ethicisticians, but that's no. But that's Allie. I know, but that's about Allie making us purdy. It's too funny, isn't it? All right, so if we look at what each of these is, which we will do, we are going to say, okay, this is the utilitarian approach. What does the utilitarian approach mean? It says which option will do the most good and the least harm for the most people.
It's like triage at a
Or the 80-20.
after a crisis.
Okay, so the current controversies about who ought to get the H1N1 virus first. Now, I want to tell you, I will tell a personal story at this point. Monday morning, Tuesday morning, I don't know, whatever morning they announced on the news, that the word came over the news on the early morning Today show, that Wall Street had, all these different Wall Street companies had received the H1N1 virus. Vaccine. Vaccine. No, don't be unethical there. That they had received the vaccine, and I'm sitting there on the couch in my flannel jammies, and I just flipped out. Moderately, because I'm working on the Lucidic degree of controlling my emotions. I had a moderate flip out and was walking around the house, and so actually this had to have been a week ago Thursday, because I was just outraged, because earlier there had been a story, or probably the night before there had been a story about people in New York, all these poor people lined up outside health departments with their small children in the rain waiting for this stuff, and Citigroup gets 400 doses of the H1N1 vaccine, and we all know who was going to get it. And they said, oh, no, it's for our internal staff. We're going to follow the same guidelines of priority. Well, I don't know whether they will or not. It gets to their ethics. And however, so I'm outraged and texted my daughter, the trauma nurse, and she was in a class, and she texted me back and goes, no, it was good. That's a good thing. And I was so irritated that I couldn't even respond, and I wrote back and I said, no, you don't understand, and she wrote back and she said, no, she said, I'll call you later and explain it to you. Well, I didn't take her call later because I was afraid to get it. And I hope she's not watching. But, so at any rate, but later, as I got to thinking about it, and I was working on this, I thought, oh, she is, because she's in the field, she obviously had a perspective that I don't have. And it was probably valid. You know, and so, but that's when we talk about the utilitarian approach, again, you can see that for me, the utilitarian approach probably wouldn't work in this situation because, you know, I get moral about it. Okay, so then the social justice approach says what is fair to all stakeholders. Yes?
I don't understand the difference then between situational ethics and the utilitarian approach.
Well, we're looking at how we solve. So if we've got if we have situational ethics, what we're doing is applying the utilitarian approach. It is very similar. Okay? We're just saying, what we were doing before, Laura, is we were defining different kinds of ethics, and now we're looking at, okay, how do we solve these? What do we use to solve them? So you're right, it is very similar. Okay, the social justice approach is what is fair to all stakeholders. And it is this is always at the heart of any affirmative action issues. I would say social issues also. So I want the social justice approach to be applied to H1N1, but apparently nobody called me to ask. So I guess I didn't get a vote. Okay, then there's the rights approach, which focuses on the legitimate claims we make on each other, such as life and liberty. And I thought this is a very interesting example that they gave. If I'm convicted of a cybercrime and I've served my sentence, then can I be banned from ever using the internet? I mean, that's a question for today. You know, I think you could also then, well, okay. And then the virtue approach, it asks whether any given action demonstrates human behavior at its best, displaying compassion, courage, honesty, or other ideals, and then looking at the current economic scandals. So going back to, is it fair for those people to continue to get those giant bonuses? I mean, is it virtuous? Interestingly enough, I do want to say that in one of the financial groups that received H1N1 vaccine, they opened their doors and gave it to the general public. I don't remember who they were.
Be good to know that virtuous group.
Yeah, but that, you know, and now again, it was Morgan Stanley. Now, again, so but my suspicious nature says, well, did they do that just because I was so angry with them? Or not just me, but people all across our country were furious. So did they do that because of that, or did they do it because they actually thought it was the right thing to do? And I'm going to choose to believe that they thought it was the right thing to do, because
Of course, it wasn't just Wall Street firms, it was all large companies.
I know.
Because they have so many employees.
Exactly.
And they have to follow the same
standard. Exactly. And that's what Michelle was going to tell me. That's what Michelle, and I know that's what Michelle was going to tell me. But you know, I still know that the CEOs were the first in line. That's what
Did the schools get it?
No.
At the same time as the large companies?
No. They followed the same procedure. Now, this is in fairness. They followed the same procedure to apply for vaccine as any health department, any school, anybody could apply to get the vaccine. And what Paul says is absolutely right. They are because they are huge corporations, they became a huge distribution point. And there was nothing wrong with it. It just sounded a little wanky to me, you know. And I'm still not sure that the CEOs weren't the first in line. But, oh well.
So have the schools gotten it?
Not in New Mexico.
Not in California.
Yeah, you know, it's in health departments. And again, there's not enough to go around. Well, this is a whole other topic, and we can talk about H1N1 another time. But you get the point here as far as ethics is concerned. Okay, we're going to talk about ethical responsibilities now. And this is where the rubber meets the road, folks. Okay. When we talk about ethical responsibilities, these are the things that we have to consider as people who hold that power differential. We are the practitioner. They are the client. And even if this is your next door or you know, a friend of yours who comes over for a reading, you are the practitioner and they are the client. And as such, they have rights as a client. All right, so a client means a recipient of your services. That's what a client is. So everybody clear? And what I'm looking at right now is standards that are published by for New Mexico counselors. So, you know, any issue that is directly affecting the physical or emotional safety of the individual, such as, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we are all clear that even if we're in a classroom situation and we're doing an exercise with someone else, that even in that learning situation, they are the client and I am the practitioner, or vice versa. And so there is, now with us, it ends up because we're in a school situation, but see, that's just like it is, you know, when I was doing my schooling to be a therapist. You know, we practiced on one another. It didn't matter whether we were licensed or not at that point. We were still practicing on each other, and we had to know what the client's rights were. Okay. So, what are the rights? Okay, clients have a right to confidentiality. Absolutely. And one of the things that I heard, which I thought was very, very interesting, was somebody said something about, or I don't know whether they said it, but I got this mental image in my mind of when we have convention and we have our readers all lined up in a row, boom, 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 we're absolutely violating their confidentiality. Absolutely. What we need to look at in the future is putting our readers in 4 different corners, you know, and asking people at the conference to stay, you know, maybe outline a space with masking tape and asking people to stay out of that space. Because if not, I mean, we're violating confidentiality.
Or is a client in that situation agreeing to give up confidentiality by approaching you in that environment?
That is definitely an ethical issue to consider, and my answer would be no, they're not. They don't. Well, now wait a minute. My answer is confidentiality applies always. Ethically, it applies always. And as the power in the relationship, it is up to us to say to them. And we can say that. We can say, you know, this is a public place, and, you know, when we should start out by saying something about it. As practitioners, we should say something about it. When we teach a class and we're practicing on each other, the teacher should say something about it. That, you know, this is all, remember that even whether we're right or we're wrong, when we're doing a reading, we're still putting it out there. And it goes back to the thing that somebody said about, you know, the suggestibility of things. And there are ways to do it, and certainly we can acknowledge it, but we can also do things to protect confidentiality more than we probably have been doing in the past. Okay, So, confidentiality and privileged communication. As readers, as divinators, people tell us things. I mean, for crying out loud. You know, and I heard Wellington saying something like, people say things to us. And that falls into the realm of privileged communication. We can't talk about it, period. No, we can't. And there's only one exception in which we can talk about it, and I will tell you about that in a little bit. Okay, any other comments about that?
Well, I often thought about the fact that as an astrologer, I collect charts to study. And I've got a stack mystique now, and if I were to die, what would happen to those?
Well, I'm going to talk about that, Ann. I'm going to talk about it.
I have to make some kind of arrangement that somebody I can trust will either destroy those or, you know, I don't know what to do with them.
Well, and I am going to address that. It's on my list.
Okay.
So, but that's, you know, it pleases me that we're thinking in those terms because it's the truth. I have a similar file, and there are things relating to that protect them, but also to protect ourselves as well, because there's another issue. All right, our ethical responsibility is to promote good and wellness. We are absolutely, it is ethically our position to see the very best. You know, we can look at a chart, we can look at a tarot spread, and I mean, you and I know every time that damn death cards comes up, you know, the skeleton, people just, I mean, you know, and it's change. So just how we do things relating to, and you know, it goes back to this, do no harm. Do no harm. Treating others as we wish to be treated. You know, I will never in my life ever get over the fact that I remember one time there was, when I was young and starting out in the Church of Light, that there was a person who was a leader who looked at my chart and went, "Oh no." Well, I hope you get this worked out. Turned around and walked off. And, you know,
You're still here?
I just, and you know, I mean, I think that in many ways that was a lot like, and I mean, and I told my one joke about the kids in the room with the pony and the, you know, the pony and the poo, you know, about with all this poo in here, there's bound to be a pony. You know, for my life, what happened is that I then set about to make sure that whatever she saw wasn't going to happen or whatever. I mean, I wanted to change that. You know, it was like when I got my permanent record, when I inadvertently was sent my permanent record from school, and it said on there, has leadership capabilities channeled in the wrong direction. And so, you know, I thought it might be a good idea for me to fix that. So, you know, but that's alchemy. I mean, that's alchemy. We can say things in such a way that they do no harm, and it is definitely our ethical responsibility to do that. Now, this next issue is huge. It's huge. About boundaries. And I need a volunteer. May I have a volunteer from the audience, please? Fine. Thank you, Ms. McCrae. Ms. McCrae, would you please step up here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And go over there and walk toward me. And when there's a comfortable boundary between us, would you please stop? Now, Allie and I are very good friends.
I was going to do this.
I'd like like you to sit down, please. Okay, I need Anne. Anne, would you please do the same thing? Okay. Thank you, Anne. Okay. All right. This is an issue that lots of us don't know anything about, is boundaries. A boundary is where I stop and Anne starts. Okay? So I have a field and Anne has a field, a comfort zone. So metaphorically, it is where I stop and the other person starts. Now, most of us who came from dysfunctional families have no clue what boundaries are. And so we're over here hanging out with people like this, you know, and it's, you know, and we're kind of talking to them, and they're thinking, get out of my way. Thank you, Anne. $3 for Anne. And 3 for Allie.
I have an advantage. I've taken Aikido.
See, there you go. I wish I'd known that before we did that. I take yoga.
Oh. She has an advantage.
Okay.
What did she say?
She said I have an advantage. I've taken Aikido. So
Which is all about
Striking range.
right.
keeping out of striking range.
Yeah, stay out of the striking range. But boundaries are so important because as practitioners, we have to be very clear about where we stop and where they start. And you know, one of the things that that my husband says to me all the time is, you know, I'll be talking about some issue or another issue relating to family or friends or whatever, and he just looks at me dead on and he says, Meg, does that have your name on it? And I go, oh no. And he said, then leave it alone. If it doesn't have your name on it, then leave it alone. Because that's a boundary issue. Okay, so as practitioners, ethical responsibility. Do we do readings for our relatives and friends? Okay, I mean that is a real boundary issue. It's a real boundary issue. And if we do readings for our relatives and friends, first of all, you know, if we're professional, I believe ethically the answer is no. You know, if anybody in my family calls me up and they say that they want a reading, I give them Christopher's number. I mean, that's what I do. And my friends as well, my close friends. Now, acquaintances, I might do something different. But for my relatives and my friends, I refer everyone to Christopher. So are we all now? So do you have some clarity about that? Now, here's the deal. You may not agree with this. You may not agree at all. Remember what we talked about earlier about ethics, it being problematic when our feelings get involved? That if our feelings get involved, that's not ethics. So, as we begin to consider this. And then there are the gray areas. You know, I won't do a reading for anybody in my family. However, there are, you know, when somebody in my family was getting ready to sign a contract, they told me that they were going to sign a contract, and I happened to have a calendar and the moon was void. I just said, you know, why don't you wait a couple hours, or can you call them up and ask them if you can do it the next day? Just a better time for you. Okay, so I know. I got the louder sound, the louder sign. So I think there are, but I think that's probably true with anybody in any profession. There are going to be some little gray areas, and we just need to look at those. So are any comments on this? Anything, any thoughts, feelings?
Some
Yes.
people won't read their own cards either. For me, if I cut out reading cards for my friends, I would give far fewer readings. I don't have an issue with that. I feel like, if anything, I give better readings when I know the person well.
Notice that your response was, I feel that I give even better readings because I know them well. That's just an observation. It's not a criticism, it's just an observation.
What's the observation?
Is that her sentence said, I feel I give better readings because they are my friends. And as far as ethical considerations are concerned, anytime the word or the thought about feelings gets involved, then there's a big red flag about it being an ethical problem.
So what's the ethical problem?
The ethical problem is it ethical to do readings for friends and family? You know, and I'm not answering any questions about that. I'm just putting it out there.
Well, so you're saying that's an issue with some people?
It's an issue. It's a big ethical issue because see, again, we're in the realm of metaphysics here. So I'm going back to that statement that we made when we saw the quote on metaphysics, that we're in uncharted territory here. And so we're kind of putting it out there and raising the bar. Or not raising the bar, but looking at the questions and answering them. And all I'm doing today is proposing questions. We're not solving any problems here.
I think I want to draw a
But you
parallel.
raised it. You made a problem by raising an issue that doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
Can I illuminate for a minute, Paul? I know doctors were discouraged from having family members as their patients.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes perfect sense to me because of their emotional involvement.
Right.
Those are psychiatrists and counselors.
Right.
For myself, when I do readings for relatives and friends, first of all, it started out as I state I'm learning, I'm practicing on for my own benefit, but also for myself, because they're relatives and friends, I'm very careful, promote goodness and wellness and to do no harm.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in doing anything else.
Uh-huh.
I mean, why would you do that?
Yeah.
So for me, it isn't an ethical question because I know I'm keeping that ethical question front and center for myself.
Well, and just, in my own experience, I mean, there's times like I have yet to mention to Christopher that I have some kind of an aspect coming up that he doesn't immediately bounce my chart right up on and look at it and give me an interpretation of something, which I'm so grateful for. I mean, I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying that it's just what everybody said. These are ethical considerations. These are things that we're looking at as we move forward here. Paul?
Well, okay, so now it sounds to me like maybe possibly there's nothing intrinsically wrong with doing it, even if you're a psychiatrist or a doctor or a tarot card reader, but it's the problem that you are personally involved with these people and there are baggage, emotions,
And
all those kinds
ramifications.
of things that you must be aware of if you're going to do it.
Exactly. And back to the thing about, doctors aren't supposed to treat their own families and friends. Oh, please. They do. And so, but we do know. And so all I believe that we are looking at is just that if we're looking at ethics, that we're aware that when we're looking at relatives and friends, that we need to be very careful. And so that's all. I mean, are we all kind of together about that? Anybody's feelings hurt? Anybody feels like they want to leave and they're angry and disgruntled? Okay.
Is that what you usually get during the treatment?
I'm pulling down.
Well, I don't know, my husband says that my Native American name pisses people off.
And we all agree. Just teasing.
Personally,
we're just starting to get into the aspect of the discussion that I came for today.
Good.
I'm not as interested in what ethics are generally as I am in how to apply ethics specifically
Good.
as a reader, as a diviner. So I'd really like to make headway now.
Good. Well, you have to understand, though, Laura, that we cannot ever make headway until we are all on the same page.
Uh-huh.
So, we move forward. So,
I mean, I don't want to avoid the sticky questions that are just now starting to come up. This is what I'm here for.
okay, well, if you will trust me and trust the process, it's going to get better.
Cool.
Thank you. All right, so the next one that we have to be responsible about are conflicts of interest. So what does that mean? Somebody tell me what a conflict of interest might be in your own practice or in your own situation.
If your boss came to you and asked the question if they should be giving you a raise, there would be a conflict of interest.
Okay. Anybody else have any?
Sometimes you're not able to tell somebody what you're pretty sure they want to hear.
Ooh, that's a good one.
What? You don't want to tell somebody what they don't want to hear. What they don't want to hear.
Sometimes you're ethically not able to tell someone what they want to hear.
Many clients come with an agenda or
Yeah.
wanting you to say yes or reinforce
Yes.
what it is they're doing.
Right. But if you see it in the
willingness to-
cards and that's not necessarily, okay, I see what you're saying. I got it.
There's sort of a strong underlying, toe to tell people what they want to hear, especially if they're paying you.
Yeah.
That's a conflict.
That's a conflict of interest.
Exactly.
You benefit by telling them a particular thing.
Right. Okay.
If someone asks you if they should buy that house and it happens to be your house.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
Or if a co-worker comes to you for a reading, and their question is, should I apply for a promotion that you yourself have already applied for?
Well, that would be a conflict of interest.
Or intended to.
The next one is, the next boundary issue is adverse effects on client rights and processes.
I'm not sure I understand what
Okay.
that means.
Well, you know what that has to do with? A lot of that has to do with is, and this is very interesting. It's like, it has to do with your relationship with the client. For example, in the counseling standards, I can't have a personal relationship with any of my clients for 5 years, 60 months. 60 months. And please,
I mean, after you finish this relationship?
yes, after the counseling relationship is terminated,
6 months.
60 months, which is 5 years. Okay, 5 years. So that's within New Mexico standards. And all of that has to be very clearly documented,
You can't meet for lunch or go to a dinner party or
if you're at the
exchange
same,
Christmas cards.
if
or-
you're at the same, no, well, if you're at the same dinner party, you obviously can say hello. It doesn't, and one of the things that I think that was always very interesting to me is that then I went to one conference that was about ethics in rural New Mexico. Because if, I live in a village of 850 people, there's no way that I'm not going to run into people who are clients if they're from Cimarron. There's no way. Okay,
30 seconds.
we need 30 seconds, beginning now. We back on? So one of the things that we just defined is the nature, and again, this is with counseling, with the counseling law in the state of New Mexico. The relationship is that you have 60 months. During 60 months after therapy is completely terminated, you will not engage in sexual intercourse, contact, or other physical intimacies with the client, or enter into a financial or other potentially exploitive relationship with the client. So somebody says, oh, well, we could go out to dinner. Well, if it's clearly stated beforehand that you're going Dutch, I mean, you know, both parties have to be very clear about it's boundaries. It's boundaries. And we just have to be knowledgeable and careful about that. You know? And, yes.
Another way to put that would be unhealthy attachments, in other words, and being, it's influencing your power differential again, and promoting an unhealthy attachment that someone may have to you as a reader.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and it also says, and I think this is my favorite one, I laughed so hard I almost had an accident. It says, a counselor or a therapist who engages in, well, no, wait, the part that I thought was interesting is a licensed or registered individual, the practitioner in other words, shall not undertake or continue a professional relationship with the client when the counselor or therapist is impaired due to mental, emotional, psychological, or substance abuse issues. So if you're a therapist and you're totally messed up, don't talk to any of your clients. Don't try to make contact with your clients. And you know, those are all big legal issues, and those are felony issues. And you can be convicted of a felony if you cross those lines. Yes. Do you have a question or a statement?
No.
Or just a head scratching? Okay. So, all right. This next one is so important. We have a law that says that if we are in the knowledge that someone is, if you're a teacher, or if you are a counselor, or if you are a police officer, and we're going to talk about if you are an average, you know, does this apply to us, this duty to report? If you have knowledge that someone is going to do harm to themselves, going to do harm to another person, is being, and you know, then so under those two, is assaulting someone sexually or physically, or being assaulted sexually or physically, do we make the call as metaphysical practitioners? Are we bound? We don't have a code of ethics that says that we are.
Well,
I have a personal code of ethics that says that I do.
Okay. What do you think, Christopher, about that?
Yeah, I think we are duty bound to report.
Duty bound to report. That's interesting, because if we look at it from the respect of duty. But again, I think this is where we get back to friends and family.
And our client
also
confidentiality.
Right. Well, but, you know, when does one trump the other? When does one trump the other?
Please answer that question.
Please answer that question.
It's a hard one, because sometimes I feel like the person needs to learn whatever they need to learn, and if you interfere, then you cut short that lesson. But somehow they have to learn to take responsibility for themselves so they aren't abused, so they don't accept the situation that they're in. And if you cut that short, you know, it's kind of the situation where the abuser goes right back to the guy who's beating her up because you rescued her. For me, it's a hard question.
It certainly is. And, and this kind of goes back to, where are we, if we don't have a written, as astrologers and practitioners, if we don't have a written code of ethics that gives us what the answer is, then are we coming up short?
I think it's even more complex than that. Are you talking about a child or an adult?
There you go.
Well, yeah, that's the crucial point,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
If
it's
a child has
important.
a duty to protect it, that's an adult,
Right.
you gotta trust that they know what they're doing.
Right.
That's a good point.
Okay.
Yeah, well, which kind of brings me to my question. As a trained professional, licensed professional, are you given lots of training on how to make the judgment of who you should report?
There's no,
what you
it's,
should report?
no, it's not, it's black and white.
Repeat the question.
That as a counseling professional, are you given guidelines about what you're going to report? It's there, black and white. There's no gray area. If someone,
You're trained to assess when someone,
well, when somebody comes into my office and they have bruises on their arm, and they tell me that they ran into a door, I'm going to report. No, there's no benefit of the doubt here. You report, always.
your business is emotional. I mean, you deal in the world of emotions and emotional life of a person.
You know
So
what?
that's your
And
business.
confidentiality.
It doesn't, no, because the well-being, human well-being of others trumps confidentiality. Whether the safety and protection of others trumps confidentiality. So as a teacher, for example, a child walks up to my desk and says,
My uncle's making me do.
no, that's not the one. That says, okay, what's that bruise? Well, I took my report card home last night and my dad hit me so hard that I bruised. This child is a drama queen. This child is, I know all about this kid's history, but guess what? I report it.
Aren't you a mandated reporter?
I report it. Yeah, and I am a mandated reporter. As a teacher, as a therapist, I'm a mandated, there's no gray area.
Right.
If someone's being hurt, but my ethical question is that in our position, are we also mandated to report? Or should we be? And I'm not asking, that's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Just, because the truth is that it won't be too much longer with things going the way they are that we will have to be licensed just like everybody else. Or should we be? Yes.
Well, mandated reporter means that
You're recognized.
there's a rule of law, or there's
Exactly.
that
Correct.
it's codified.
Exactly.
Correct.
But you could sort of say everybody's a mandated reporter, whether they're a practitioner of any kind. Of
Exactly. Exactly,
Or a
Paul.
duty-bound reporter.
Ethically.
Duty-bound.
That's the question.
Right.
That's it. If we're talking about ethics, then are we saying that ethically, so we go back to what our definition of ethics is, and if it is, our definition is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or, the definitions that we came up with, then if we're functioning for the greater good, then do we report? Yes.
I have a case that I know personally of.
Okay, be careful about how you're talking about her.
You wouldn't know. But at any rate, a child went to a priest and told of abuse in the family. The priest immediately went to the father and told him what the child had said. The father came home and beat the hell out of the child for disclosing that information.
Mm-hmm.
So, that to that day, it's messed up the person.
Well, and again, I don't know how long ago it was, all right? But in today's world, that priest is on the list of mandated people who has to report. And so there's a liability issue and a felony occurred.
he has to report to the father?
No, he has to report to the authorities.
Right.
Yeah, he actually, the law is very clear that that the law is very clear for people who are mandated reporters that if a child talks about abuse, it's like immediately what happens is you get on the phone. This is what I do. Would get on the phone, call the counselor would come up to my room and take my class while I would go down and call social services. Boom, just like that.
So,
and the family is not notified, no way, never, not in this lifetime.
Until they show up on the doorstep.
Exactly.
And then the father.
You know what? We don't go there because the first mandate is to protect.
right. So what if I'm giving a reading to someone who admits that they've been very depressed lately and periodically contemplating suicide? Do I call some agency and say, I'm a tarot reader?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll tell you what, Laura. You are so psychic, and if you will just hold on to that question,
Okay.
then when we get to a little bit further, which is not very far from now, we're all going to get to talk about that issue. Okay?
Great minds. Are you going to speak to that specific issue?
Yes, we are.
Or is it the generality?
No, that's going to be a specific
Okay.
issue.
Well, I have a general question.
Okay.
As a man, you're required to report.
Mm-hmm.
You have a procedure that you follow. You know who you're reporting to, and you are recognized by the people that you are reporting to.
Child Protective Services will talk to any referral. They will investigate.
Even an astrologer or a tarot card.
You don't have to. You don't have to say what the relationship is.
Okay.
You call
I didn't know that.
You call. All you do
Anonymously.
is you can call. You can call. Lord, you can call 911. And you can say. You can call and say. I know someone who is actively contemplating suicide. How do you know them? I have a relationship. I have a personal relationship with them. Or I have a professional relationship with them. And if they say, well, what is the nature of the relationship? You can just say, that's not important. What is important is, and then you go on and report. You have rights too. Not a lot, but you do have some. Okay?
And Child Protective Services referrals can be done anonymously.
Well, yeah. And we all know that's not the truth. But that's okay. You know what? It doesn't matter. 3 hours after I made that report, that father was in my face. And you know what? I don't care. So there. But I don't have a lot of energy on this issue. So the next question is: are we all clear that this is something that is huge, all the way around? And I just, again, I can't tell you what to do, but I always think it's better to err on the side of making sure that people, of caution, of making sure that people aren't hurt. It's always better to err on that side. And that's my opinion. And 75 cents may get you a cup of coffee. Or 50 cents at McDonald's if you're older. Okay, referrals. When do we refer out? We have to refer out, folks. We have got to refer out. So, who do we refer to? Well, in the overall scheme of things, many of us have been in therapy. Or we might know therapists who are sensitive to who we are and what we do. Because we're wonderful people, and people who know us know that we're wonderful people. And so, if we're going to be practitioners, whether we're doing it professionally or down at or whatever, if we're doing readings, then we need to have people that we can refer to, that we know that we can refer to, professionals that we can refer to. And that's very, very important. And we should have their telephone numbers so that we can give the number out. And the minute that we get an issue in a session that we know, and see, here we go back to boundaries again, because I think that as people who are, I think that, and again, my opinion, I believe that those of us that are in this work are in this work because we genuinely care about people and we want to help people. That's why we're doing it. I don't know anybody who is in it bottom line to make a fortune, because it's not happening anyway. But you know, it's, we care about people, we want to help, but we have to know what our boundary is. We have to know where we stop, and somebody with more expertise needs to take over. So we should have that number so that we can make those referrals. Okay? Anybody want to say anything about that?
I agree with you.
Well, I've had that situation where somebody was reporting that they had transgressed financially, and if they were to get caught, they were going to commit suicide. And I immediately handed her the suicide hotline number and therapist numbers and said, this is not the way to handle this. You know, yes.
As a practicing therapist, I need supervision and I need consultations. I believe being ethically responsible, we're moving to a point where we also need that. Now, so then this is going to go back to the thing that we talked about, confidentiality. Christopher, do you sign a confidentiality agreement with your client?
I do not.
Okay. Is there anybody in here who sees clients that signs a confidentiality agreement?
In business.
In business, okay. And I also have people, and I think that it's coming, that we may need to do that. Now, I know that there is a case. I know of a case in which someone referred a client to me as a therapist, and so what I did is I had the client sign a release of information, and so then I was able to talk to the metaphysical practitioner, you know, because I had a release of information, and that kind. I mean, I just think we need to. I think we need to go there.
Do they do that if a priest is doing counseling? Do they have confidentiality?
They're supposed to.
They are.
Well, there's the confidentiality of the confessional, for one thing. There's the, you know, I mean, like an attorney-client privilege. But you know what? See, Vicki, that's a very interesting thing, because I have to tell you that I believe that Protestant counselors are doing way better than Catholic counselors are.
Well, that's not my issue. Excuse me. My issue is that all of a sudden I'm wondering if you're talking about a professional standards for what a specific group of people right now, and what I'm wondering, for example, when people graduate from the Church of Light with a Hermetician certificate and they want to practice, they can legally practice as a minister of the Church of Light. They can do counseling. Do the same rules apply? We
don't have a code of ethics.
Well, I understand that, but what I'm wondering is it the same?
Well, yes, technically, but there's nothing written that says it is, but we ought to have, I mean, you know, here's that should word again. You know, that's an ethical issue. That's definitely an ethical issue. I mean, we're really looking at Yes, we ought to, because ministers are basically, very often counselors.
Right.
So, but we don't have a written ethical standard, and it's a good idea for us to do that. Yes?
Where does a sole practitioner get supervision?
A sole practitioner gets supervision, and that's where it comes for me. Okay, as what I do is I do consultation. I do it as in a consultation thing. I can hire somebody who is a master's level therapist. If they want to charge insurance, they have to do this. If I want to charge people insurance, if I want to collect insurance, then I have to have a supervisor, and you usually find a PhD or someone else. It's usually a PhD that you pay to consult with you on cases, and you go over and talk with them for an hour and then give them a check, and they don't, but you're covered legally. And for those of us who don't take insurance, normally what happens is we form a group of counselors, and we meet periodically and review cases. And within the context of the confidentiality agreement that a client signs, it says that they understand that that's going to happen, and names are never used at all. Yes.
You mean liability insurance?
No, to collect these.
No, I'm talking about if you come to me as a if you come to me as a client for therapy, and you have Blue Cross and Blue Shield for mental health, okay, which I won't take it. All right, so yes.
I was going to say that, and also on the confidentiality, that you also forewarn the client, I will keep your confidence in everything but these issues. If I think that you're going to harm yourself and go out of this office and do something to yourself, that is when I'll break your confidentiality, or any of the times where you're obliged to. You sort of forewarn them.
And that's in your client's rights. That's the client's rights statement that they sign. And, every client signs a client's rights statement. And they understand that these are my rights, that everything is completely confidentiality unless I am going to harm myself or harm someone else, or, and yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, so record keeping. Okay, we're really doing great here, you guys. Thank you. Ann's issue is, do you keep records?
What do you mean?
Well, do you keep records? Do you keep...
I do not keep handwritten notes of conversations with clients.
Yes.
The records I keep are just their birth data.
Okay. And is it like on index cards, or...
No, it's in the form of chart files in 8.5 by 11 and in computer files.
Okay.
But I don't keep written records of any conversation.
Okay, so we have a couple of issues here. One of the issues is that there may be a point in time where we will have to do that, but it's not today. We don't have to do that. I think you handled what you said was probably pretty right on. All those files with people's charts in them, there needs to be somebody who is much younger than you are, maybe 2 or 3 people, that you say to them, when I move on, please go in, and this is where these files are. I need your word that you will not look at them at all, and that they will be shredded or burned. And that's what happens. I also think that anybody purges files, so that you as a practitioner, we decide how often do we go back into our files and purge them out. And it should be probably whatever you think it is, or whatever we think it is. It probably should be a lot less time than because we really don't need to have all those things lurking around.
I do it every 10 years.
Yeah, and I would say that probably it needs to happen closer to 3. And you keep the ones that are still active clients. You only purge the ones out that you don't have a clue where they are. Because if they do come back, you can get their information again. Yes?
I keep mine for research purposes, because as I learn, then I go back to these files and I see things that apply to what I'm learning, and it's a real life example. So I keep them, I don't purge them, but at some point I have to take care of the problem of when I die.
Confidentiality would say that in that situation, that what you do is you go in those files and you delete the person's name and just put female.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because you know that way you can use them, you can keep them as long as you want for research purposes, but it's, you know, nothing's there. That you delete their name every place.
That would be a good idea.
Yeah, it would be a great idea. And it's something we need to be really aware of as we're doing research here too, you know. Okay, record keeping. Oh, the other thing is, and this is very interesting too, about if you do, and see, there isn't any real reason for people to keep conversations, copies of, you know, notes about the conversations particularly, but if you do, be very careful of that, because anything that you write down is admissible in a court of law. And if you can honestly say, I just don't write anything down, then you're covered. And then if you're ever licensed, you have to write everything down. You have to write a lot of stuff down. But again, you're taught as a professional therapist how to write stuff down in code or something. So, okay, so the current ethical standards and guidelines, the International Society for Astrological Research has a website. You just Google ISAR or International Society for Astrological Research, and they have a really neat code of ethics that they've put together and they've worked really hard on, and I think it's very interesting reading. And then I used New Mexico Ethics for Counseling Professionals in this presentation, so those were my resources. Okay, and we're going to do some situations now. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with, I have 4 situations. So I'm going to have you in a minute get in your groups. A couple things that I want to say first. Number 1, this is, especially for those of you out in Cyberland, you know, this is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for your presentation. Remember that the people here are able to give a donation, which does that go to the order? Did the donations go to the order for this event, or did we talk about it? Okay. But at any rate, you have an opportunity to go down on your screen and click on the donation and to make a donation for the events today and tonight. And that'd be great if you would choose to do that. And if you don't, that's okay. So I wanted to say that. I also wanted to tell you that one of the things that I did in preparation for this workshop was, I'm a Netflix person. I live in the middle of nowhere, so I get Netflix. And in some of the reading I'd done from Santa Clara University, there was something that talked about a film that the Dalai Lama had made on ethics in the world crisis. And actually, this video was made in 2003. So, but it is, and so I ordered it, and it came, and I started watching it, and it really didn't apply to what we were doing today, but it just knocked my socks off. It was just so profound, and I just love the Dalai Lama. He is so funny. I mean, he is funny. That's a funny man, and. So I really recommend that. I recommend that video to you. I am going to go home as soon as I'm finished here, and I'm going to watch the rest of it. And I hope that you all will get it and watch it too, because it was moving and profound. And then the other thing too, before we go, I think if anytime we're dealing with ethical issues, I think the bottom line is, and this is all through everything that I read, the bottom line is always the golden rule. is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's the bottom line in any ethical issue.
Oh, can I bring a question that may have some discussion that's related somewhat to that?
Yeah.
Which is the universal moral code that we have
Mhm.
is in the Church of Life.
Yes. And you know, that is, it's very interesting because in my sermon tomorrow, I actually speak directly to that. Because it is, I mean, every major religion has at its core, usually, something that is like, do unto others. And for us, it's contribute your utmost to universal welfare. I mean, it's the same thing. Is that?
Well, yeah, and we've actually had, there's been some discussion from people throughout the years. Some people go, what in the world does that mean? And, I think that it would be kind of an interesting topic sometime just to talk about what does that mean? Yeah, how do you apply that? Because it's a very generalized code of conduct.
And so is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think that's a very...
Well, but that's more personal, isn't it? Because I know what I want people to do to me.
And you also know what your utmost is.
And you also, exactly.
And I guess, okay, thank you.
Yeah. And you do, I mean, that's the truth. You do.
Yeah, and that's true.
And so, what contributing my utmost to universal welfare means to me today and what it meant to me 30 years ago, very different.
Yeah.
This goes until 4:30? Okay, yeah, I thank you.
Meg, I've heard a platinum rule. I don't know where it came from. It's do and think unto others as you would have them do and think unto you. And I think that really...
And that acknowledges the duality, the dual nature of...
Yeah,
You said do, speak, and think.
Okay, I need one person from each group to come up here, and you have 5 minutes, dead on, 5 minutes to come back, to pick up a situation, go tell me what you're going to do with it, and come back. One person from each group, time now, 5 minutes. And if I could ask you to be very quiet, so if you could go into another room and then I can give the people on Cyberland the same situation. So if I could ask the people here to go quickly and quietly into another room. Everybody got one? Arf. So, here's the situation. Your great nephew, and I'll read this twice for you. Your great nephew in Baltimore calls you out of the blue. He's met the girl, and he tells you that he believes that she may be the one for him. He wants you to cast her horoscope and let him know if you think they'd be a good match. He has her accurate birth data, so you do her chart and you discover a fixed T-square involving Mars and Saturn conjunct in the 5th, opposing her sun in the 11th. The other end of the T-square is the moon in the 1st and Pluto in the 7th. How do you proceed? Okay, just go with the information that you've got. Don't try to ask, well, which signs are they in or anything like that. Here's the information again. Your great nephew in Baltimore calls you out of the blue. He's met the girl of his dreams and tells you that he thinks that she may be the one. He wants you to cast her horoscope and let him know if you think that they'd be a good match. Can you go ask them to be quiet, please? He has her accurate birth data, you do her chart, and you discover a fixed T-square involving Mars and Saturn conjunct in the 5th, opposing her sun in the 11th. She has the moon in the 1st and Pluto in the 7th. How do you proceed? And you all only have 4 minutes. But maybe more. So get your little pencils going, and I'm gonna go get a drink.
They're about 10 or 12 seconds behind this, so they're just now hearing what you said.
Oh, okay.
Slight time.
Right. Oh, no,
Because you should talk it here.
maybe it's good, maybe it's wrong.
Okay.
Just about 10 seconds.
Now remember that you can do some chatting there online with one another to see if you think anybody else is thinking the same things that you're thinking. Because I just went back and looked and nobody's chatting, so we're not sure if you're there, but anyway. Are you there? Are you there?
Consideration of boundaries. Well, if you decide that you're not going to then what?
What?
Ask that person on.
Yeah.
Ask what?
I don't, did you, what did I do with it? I knew it. See, I think the color should be.
This weekend, they should have definitely
I think it
because we
should
need to
be,
do something to raise money.
well, I think it should be 50-50 split.
Okay.
But, you know, so, maybe we can bring it. Because it needs to be, you know, I think it needs to be.
Well, she just says this, she said there is, she just says the point of this is
We gotta do
that
something to raise some money for the organic funding convention. I agree
Well,
with you.
it's not 100% funding.
Oh, no.
But it's still.
You gotta dance, but you gotta do it online.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Interesting what? Oh, yeah.
You're not gonna be here for the service tomorrow. She has an interest in that service.
I had a new flight out of here, so I'm probably gonna have to be here for by 10 o'clock. So I gotta leave from this tomorrow.
Where are you staying?
I'm staying right across from the airport, so it's the Homewood Suite. Homewood Suites, and Holiday Inn, and everything right there together. Rooms are a little bigger and everything, and like the bedrooms and things like that. Yeah, it's a nicer couple spots. I get good time.
Please begin to move back in.
It's like if you go to the airport and see the probably if we run for a place, we follow the rent car before you get there. You could buy a rental car. There's a car get back to the hotel.
This is fun.
Great exercises.
Great. It's very hard. Can you just give a blank screen, Barb? Can you just make black, can you turn this off and make a blank? Can it just be a blank? No, just get rid of this. No, okay. Good.
You could go back to the,
I will.
just to your front screen.
Yeah. Okay, ladies, please take your seats. Go ahead and stay in your groups if you want to, because you're gonna go right you're gonna do right. Do right. All night. All right, so this is situation 1.
Situation 1. Oh, that's us.
No, we all got it.
Oh.
All right.
This is the softer one.
So, I think we're going to take 5 minutes, 4 minutes now, and talk about this case. So, I just want somebody to say what they, Vicki. No, you got Vicki. What would tell us one thing that your group said that they would do?
We all got the same situation, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the first thing that we came up with, don't ask me.
Okay, somebody else in Vicki's group. Anne.
Well, the first thing we thought about was the issue of you're dealing with a great nephew. It's a family relative. So you might want to refer this to somebody else.
Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously, when I call on your group name, don't give me that same one again. But give me one thing that you came up with. It's a family member, so you refer it out. Okay.
That's not what we concluded, though.
Maybe. You consider it.
Okay. Well, all right. But you don't get to say it. Yeah, all right. So, another group, jump in. Tell me one thing that what you think was very important that you want to do.
We came up with the same thing. Family member refer to somebody in Baltimore.
Okay. Okay. Anybody come up with anything different than to refer out?
Well, we were considering that, well, we had a difference of opinion actually as to how to handle it.
We were totally 100%.
I personally would frame the reading very positively and not get into sticky issues because it might be a one-shot deal. You know, it's over the telephone, it's at a distance, you may not ever have another conversation about this. But another person in our group thought that she would go head on into the issues anyway, although they're framed positively. Not say, oh my God, look at that. Oh my God, it's doomed.
Like that lady did with me.
Yeah. Oh my God. So we have a different opinion about how directly we would confront the potential problems in a relationship.
Okay. And what was your difference of opinion, or what was your other?
Only a slight difference. And this is just personal. I would hands down decline a reading pending further information. His astrological horoscope data is provided.
Okay.
Good point.
Yeah, and so the challenge always, anytime we have these situational issues, is you got to deal with what you've got in the situational issue. All right. So I mean, I know for me, I would always go, well, what were the signs and which was in what sign, and well, how come it's 1st and 5th or 5th and what was it, 5th and 11th and it's 1st and 7th, how did that happen?
She was born in Scotland.
I know, but I mean, don't get stuck in the minutia. Just go with the situation. Okay, are you ready for situation number 2?
Yes.
Yay! Situation number 2. Here we go. Somebody come get it. One for each group. Go quickly to your rooms. And and thank you. Keep your voices down while you are hearing my voice, because I'm reading it to our online people. It's primarily the kitchen group that has to be quiet at first. Thank you. This is situation 2. You have a regular client who is in the middle of an approaching long-term discordant aspect. It is in orb. He is clearly very depressed and also has major progressed aspect to both 8th and 1st houses. how do you proceed? And I'm only going to give them probably 2 minutes on this one. You all are so good, Joe, get 2 minutes on this one. You all are so good, Joe, get 2 minutes to decide. You all are so good. Did I read it twice today? I didn't read it twice.
Wait, it goes direct next year. I'm so happy.
They're not responding.
They probably went.
Or should we just stay in the room? Because she'll send us back.
Maybe they all went bye-bye.
No.
Well, it's late, you know, and
I think it's
oh,
Well, no, I can tell when they log in, but I don't know when they log out.
yeah.
I mean, it's not the
There's a basket back there.
you know.
I just want to make that it's still there.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I'm sending around, while we're talking about this case, I'm going to send around a piece of paper. I need for you to put down your name and all of your bank account numbers.
and social security.
Just one or two, maybe.
Not maiden name either.
Well, I know you're awake. Okay, so situation
Phone number and email address.
Phone number and email address, if you would please. Thank you, Vicki. I forgot what I was doing. Okay, so this is situation 2. The person who is having a particularly troublesome major progression and is clearly depressed. So what do you do? Group number 3, what do you do?
We first ask point blank whether they're considering suicide and refer them to a mental health professional, as well as provide them with the number of a suicide hotline.
You were group number 3. Group number 4?
It's pretty much the same thing. You'd want to query them about to get more details, but you'd want to refer them to a licensed professional.
Okay. Group number 1?
We decided too that the client would need professional care, but we also would recommend alchemical antidotes to think about.
Okay. The other group? 2?
We felt like professional counseling might be appropriate to recommend. However, to present the client with the opportunity to look at this as a complete transformation of the self. Death and rebirth. Many people might consider suicide during a time like this, but that's because the old self needs to die. And so if they want, help walking through this time, reminding them that any of these times have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and they might want to get professional help through this, but to present it as an opportunity to completely remake the self from the fundamentals on up, then they might be able to have, thoroughgoing and positive excitement about such a time.
Did I get all the groups, or is there one I missed?
Two.
Two.
That was two.
I think you got them.
Yeah, okay. So, I'd like to have a little, does anybody have any discussion about any of that? So, from an ethical standpoint, just pure ethics.
The man needs professional care.
Yeah, from a pure ethical standpoint, you don't deal with this at all. Not at all. Not because anything, again, you've got a position of power going on here.
But then isn't it recreating your teacher looking at your chart going, oh no?
Not at all. Just, in a very loving and caring way. In a very loving and caring way. Saying, and as a therapist, okay, if someone came to me as a therapist, not even just, and said to me, I'm having these really hard times in my life, and, and I saw the 8th house, 1st house thing, I would refer them right away. And I would probably keep them with me until I knew that or take them someplace. Because, we just know that you've got a 1st house, 8th house, you do need to, and maybe stand right there and hold his hand while he called the suicide hotline.
Well,
it's, and
you said he was depressed in here. You didn't say that he was suicidal.
I said, but he's got a 1st house, 8th house, a big time 1st house, 8th house aspect.
Okay. So if the human mind is 100% suggestible,
Yeah.
and you are pointing at him and saying you are contemplating suicide, you're implying that. I think to point out that some people might consider suicide when they're under this kind of a frame, without making it personal, and then giving them choices about how they respond or even conceive of this challenge / opportunity in their life. That doesn't mean that you're not referring them to a counselor, but I see us as metaphysical counselors with a certain level of insight, power, perspective, or whatever that regularly trained counselors don't have. I see that we can drop a kernel into their imagination and into their big picture view that people in the Western world are not equipped to even go there, much less start imagining from that level. If we're talking about soul growth and evolution, we're talking about conscious, what's our phrase in the Church of Light? Conscious...
Self-conscious immortality.
Yes, self-conscious immortality, that thought-provoking phrase. What can we do as counselors in our unique position for this person? They're referring them to a Western world, counselor that glorifies the individuality above all else and sees nothing else in the picture. Can do.
Yes,
Comment
Paul.
on that because, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that almost any licensed professional that's trying to deal with something like this would ask them, that it's okay to ask them the question, have you been contemplating suicide? You ask that right out. If there's any question about that, then now you're playing with fire. Now you're a person who's not really qualified to deal with this. This person may have a serious chemical imbalance, and they're not going to achieve nirvana under any circumstance when they're in that kind of a situation. They may need who knows what they need, and you may not like Western medicine, but if you're not qualified to deal with somebody who may be contemplating suicide, it seems to me you would want to make sure they got some help right away.
Well, also, just because you refer them doesn't mean that you can't still be there to counsel.
Too,
Right, that's what she was saying, refer them to do it.
Right, sure. Oh, sure.
And suggesting to them that suicide is the only way to react to this,
Right.
No,
wax.
don't do that. You never do
I
that.
didn't say that. I mean, that's not what I said, but I think the thing that just came out of that was, we do, even though we are not, even though, you know, you as practitioners are not licensed, quote unquote, you can ask the question, and the question needs to be asked, you know, are you considering, have you had, and what you want to know is, do they have, and this is, you know, do they have suicidal ideation? Have you thought about committing suicide? And Laura's right, you know, there's a way to ask the question too. But I think you also, depending on the answer to the question, it helps you know how to proceed. Yes, there's a question from online, from Cyberland.
Yeah, we have an online question. Well, actually, it's a comment. She says, I had a client hold a gun to his head while on the phone with me. He was determined to kill himself. I prayed the entire time for guidance. I called the police. The police kept me on the phone while they went in with a counselor. He had a house full of guns. He refused treatment by them. But a year later, he did call me, and he thanked me for saving him.
There you go. I mean, you know.
Okay, I'm just going to counter that with another. I had a good friend call me and tell me that she was going to commit suicide that night. And I sat and talked to her saying, I honor your right to make this decision. I think it is within the scope of human consciousness to decide whether we want to live or die. So if I find out tomorrow that you have committed suicide, I will be so sad, but I have to say, I hope you don't do it, but it is up to you. And she called me a year later and thanked me for saving her life. And I did not intervene. I didn't send anybody to stop her from making her own decisions. She still thanks me to this day for that.
And as I'm
This is
sure
all
that,
situational
as I'm
ethics.
sure, yeah, as I'm sure that the other person still thinks. I mean, you know, and again, you know, what we're doing here today is we're talking about ethics, and you know, we're getting it out on the table, and you know, so we've got there's one more, but we're not going to do that one because it is 4:35, and this show is going to be over here in just a second. And
Well, since a person came to you for a reading, obviously you're going to refer them for counseling and ask about whether they're suicidal, address that. But I see no harm in at least giving them what they came for, which was a reading in some fashion, no matter how superficial, or, you know, like I see this lasting for many years and you're going to have to persevere and you're going to, you know, like you said, present it positively and give them something for what they came for. Because that's the
Oftentimes,
first place they came to.
people will come to us either as religious practitioners or metaphysical practitioners because they've not received satisfaction through mental health professions. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I have that are mental health professionals, and or through the medical profession or through other things that are there. Sometimes we are the last ditch effort in terms of what people are reaching for to find that level of understanding.
And I think one of the things that I'm hearing, and I think that this is something that is that, so our code of ethics as metaphysical practitioners is going to have a different slant on it. You know, and it will. And that's, if that's what you all have just kind of decided and realized, then my work is done.